on behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight, welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
Well, I know that there are few people who are as blessed as I am, because I get to talk to a lot of people that I wouldn't normally talk to if I wasn't doing this show. And one of these people has been my friend for, I'm going to say 25 years. She is Jennifer Lugo, but recently got married. I don't even know if I know your last name, Jen.
It's Lugo still.
Lugo, okay. I may forget that.
All good.
Okay. But anyway, we've known each other since our Germany days. Is that where we met?
Yeah, that's right.
Back in,
when you're at the Family Support Center.
Yeah, 1996, 7?
97.
97?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And as I recall, you were a very young and I'll say plump captain or lieutenant, because you were pregnant.
I was having my firstborn, and then I had my secondborn there too.
Yep. And now they're not married yet, are they? I haven't heard.
None of them are yet.
None of them
they're
are.
in their
Okay.
mid-20s.
Okay. All right. So they're still at home, making sure that you feed them.
Correct. That is true. Nobody's missing any meals around here.
Yeah. But the typical Latina, you're going to feed everybody, no matter
That's
what.
right. That's right.
Because I remember the last couple of times I was at your house, and man, I gained about 50 pounds from all the food that you fed me. But
oh, come on. It wasn't that. It was good stuff, though.
Oh, right? It was good. Yeah. I'm not complaining. It was just taking it off that was not easy. So anyway, Jen, you are recently, I think, back into the GS. Well, you were in the GS field, I know, but you're a director for the FSS, whatever that means anymore.
So I am the Community Services Flight Chief for the 502nd. So that encompasses Lackland, Randolph, Fort Sam Houston, and Camp Bullis.
Okay. And that's for services.
Correct.
Taking care of people, really, basically.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
How many people do you serve out there?
We have almost 500 in my area, and then our squadron has child and youth as well. And so I work for a GS-15, and there's about 1,000 of us, I think, in total.
Altogether. Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And some people are going to be wondering, well, why is she on the Chiefs program? Well, because you started out as an enlisted person. In fact, what your story is in my latest book about enlisted people, the Mustang book, and Army in Michigan, I think.
Yes, from Michigan, born and raised. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Well, we weren't. I was going to say we can't hold that against you, but we can. Not that we will. We shouldn't. But we shouldn't. Yeah. But you served in the Army for a few years.
4 years.
Then you became an airman.
I did.
And then you became an officer.
I did.
And then you went up to lieutenant colonel, as I recall.
I did.
And then retired. And then got into the GS. Man, you've been a warrior of some sort for most, if not all of your life, Jen.
Yeah, when I retired, I would remember I was working at University of Texas, San Antonio for a year and loved it there. Hated my hour-and-a-half commute one way there and back from my side of town. Yeah. So a friend of mine called me and asked me if I was tired of driving that every day. I said, well, yeah, kind of. And she's like, well, we have some openings coming up if you'd like to apply. And fortunately, I was picked up. And so I've been a civil service since 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you've done several things within that, and
it
seems to me that every time you switch and like pivot, whatever you call it, it's a better thing. It gets more exciting every time. With FSS being I can't imagine how much you're traveling a lot.
Oh, it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot.
All over San Antonio,
the streets, absolutely. Yes. And it's the first time I've ever been in an all-civilian organization, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
and in the meantime, particularly when you were on active duty, you did, in fact, have chiefs working for you or with you. I mean, you and I worked together at the Air Force Academy, although I was retired, and you were a major, if I remember.
I was.
Right? Yeah. And I remember you calling me and saying, Jefe, I need you, and I would drop everything. Okay, that sounded good. Right?
Almost everything.
Almost everything. And I'd go help you because you had a pretty tough mission out there. And but that's just the way it is. So, but the question of the day, of course, Jen, is what does And you can speak in general terms if you'd like, but specifically for you, what does a person in your position, a civilian, especially you've got all these years of military service, what do you expect of a chief, particularly a new chief? You just promoted your senior master sergeant to chief, and she stays there with you. And now it's a little bit different because we expect different from an E9, a chief. What are your expectations of that person?
So I really feel like, and you've written about this as well, leadership lessons they never get old, right? They never get old. And some of the stories are really the same. I expect loyalty. I expect them to maintain standards and expectations throughout, because let's be honest, I know when I was an enlisted person, I would have never talked to an officer unless I was in trouble. And of course, the Army was it was a
Yeah,
different color back then. It
yeah,
was a different Army back then.
yeah,
But I never interacted with officers,
yeah,
not until my last year in. And that person really changed my perception about talking to officers in general. Not to where, oh yeah, I think I want to do, go ROTC or anything like that I ended up doing.
yeah,
But it was just different. And so, and then the third thing I would say is I expect them to be visible and kind of know what's going on, having the heart and the beat of whatever mission we're working on. And so those type of things are what I expect really of anybody who is working with me, working for me. I always tell people I'm working for you too. Even if you're lower ranking than me, I don't have a job if you don't have a job. And so it's important that they understand that I might be here and I might be a little bit, but we all put our pants on the same way, right?
yeah, yeah.
We do.
And if we're
And
lucky, we all have the same purpose, the first, same mission.
correct. And that's not always the case.
Mm.
Some people are doing other things. I mean, like you said, on my civil service side, I've changed careers. This is the third time. But when I was active duty, I mean, I think I moved 15 times total between the Army and the Air Force. So a lot of change, a lot of things to get used to, and it's uncomfortable initially,
Yeah,
especially when you're doing something different. So, but when I had chiefs, Jerry Tapia was one that,
yeah,
just sticks out in my head because we used to have so much fun working together.
yeah,
But he always seemed to be ahead of the game. And I say that because not only was he the guy in the gym first thing in the morning, but he was also the guy that was always checking on everybody who was in the military personnel flight at the time. Where they're making ID cards, they're doing life insurance stuff, they're doing orders, they're doing deployments, and he always had a smile on his face. He always had a positive attitude. And he's a personal friend of mine and yours,
yeah,
but he always had the beat of what was going on in the squadron. And
yeah,
I appreciated that, because sometimes I think when you are a little higher in rank, you get pulled into some politics that you don't necessarily want to, but you have to, and you have to work your boss's agenda and mission. And so I never really had to worry about whether or not he kind of knew what was up or what was going on and stuff.
yeah,
And fortunately, because I'm one of those people who like to talk to everybody, I've always had a really good relationship with airmen in general. They tell me stuff, and then their supervisors would get mad and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you told her that. What's wrong with you?" But that's okay with me, because sometimes there's just problems that are bigger than what we see, and it takes a team and a team effort to work through those. And I
yeah,
never wanted my folks to think that I was too busy for them.
yeah,
I always dropped everything I was doing, and if somebody needed me and stuff like that, heck yeah, I'm going to be there.
yeah,
I'm going to be there. And not
yeah.
just for bad news. I want to
Right.
see people when they're happy and when things are good. Because then that's another thing, if you only come around when things are bad, nobody wants to see you.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, and,
yeah,
and what will happen, I think, Jen, is that people, all of us, I think we're all basically the same, will keep stuff away from you then. I don't
absolutely.
want to tell you, as you're a mom, you have three kids, that if you don't, and it really depends on the trust level. That's what you're talking
Sure,
about. Is it
sure,
that
sure.
people however we see them, or whatever term we use to call them, our followers will, if they trust us, they're going to tell us, because I can tell the chief, I can tell Miss Lugo, because she's not going to kill me. You know,
Correct.
I can tell
Correct.
mom. It's like
Yeah.
you know my kids.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
in Germany when when Tessa, our oldest, became old enough to drink. In Germany, I think that's 5. As long as you can reach the bar, you can
This is
drink.
true.
But I told her when we moved there, I said, "Look, baby, yeah, I know you're going to do it because all kids do it, but
Hmm.
don't drink and drive. Call me.
Correct.
Just call me. I will pick you up. I will not ask any questions. You can trust me." And she did a couple of times. And
Hmm.
it's funny, you know, you don't have to ask a drunk anything. They'll tell you all kinds of
I'll tell
stuff.
you everything.
They'll tell you everything. Yeah, you know, oh, I don't want to know that. TMI. And but the same thing I think with people who we lead in an organization. If they trust us, they will tell us. And you're right. You need
Right.
to know
Right.
as a chief, you know, and you know, I was always out everywhere that I could possibly be. Of
Yeah.
course, I had a
Yeah.
lot. I was younger and I had a lot more stamina then. But
Yeah.
that's how I learned what we needed to work on, and then I could report to my
Sure.
boss, you know,
Sure.
wherever the
Sure.
rank was. And I think, and I don't know anymore because I'm not out there anymore. But I think some people, especially when they make chief, they think they can close themselves in the office, and now I can just send emails. Well, you can do
Right.
all that. You can do that all you want, but it's not going to
Hmm.
work very well. And then
Right.
eventually, the boss, Mrs. Lugo, is going to be coming after me because why didn't I know this? I didn't know it. You know,
Sure. Sure.
that's no good. So you're right, and you got to be out there with them. Now,
Yes.
what do you do with an introvert? Someone who doesn't like to be with the people, you know? But I mean,
So I,
obviously, you have to somehow balance that.
sure. Sure. I do my best to try to make connections with people like that because they don't always want to talk and they don't always want to talk to you. And so that does get challenging sometimes. Sometimes they just want to be left alone, do their job, go home and play on their computers or video games or whatever it is that they do. It's hard to get those kind of folks out and talking and whatnot. But what I've noticed is that if we make an effort to try to learn our folks, eventually you'll stumble on something that you can kind of connect with. And so I really do try to work on that and figure it out so that I have that personal connection with my folks and with anybody, really. I mean, just 2 nights ago, we were out here at the Park Club on Randolph, and I was talking to a 2-star, and no kidding, like I thanked him for bringing his folks to the club because people don't really hang out on base like they used to way back
Yeah,
when, before technology really advanced and stuff. And so it's difficult on the services side to make money stateside.
yeah.
And ironically enough, we were talking and I found out that one of my Air Force daughters works directly for him. And so he took a picture of us and he sent it to her. And she's like, "Get away from my boss. Don't tell him anything. He likes me." And it was just really funny. But I thanked him because I said, "I really appreciate you talking to your folks and bringing them here to try to support us." I said, because we need it. We don't know how long we're going to be able to last the way things have moved and cut and that kind of thing. So I'm the first person to thank somebody for being supportive in that. And now he'll probably always remember me because he's like, "Oh yeah, that's Allie's Air Force mom," kind of thing. So it's nice to talk to people, not just because they're wearing a rank or wearing a uniform or whatever, but I've met a lot of elderly people that hang out there and they're just so funny and they love to tell stories and they just love to talk, and I listen because that's what you do. You listen to the nuggets that sometimes you don't recognize as such until you're like, "Oh yeah, that was good. I need
Yeah,
to remember that one."
yeah,
But I, like I said, I think people have generally always been comfortable talking to me, but I expect my senior ranking enlisted people to really, hey, I think this is a bad idea and this is why. And we have to be open to that. And like you said, you don't leave behind a desk. You have to be out there. You have to see some things. You have to do some things, and in order to make sure that you're on the right track, and your spidey senses are still there, and no matter if we're retired or whatever, we know when things are good and we know when things are bad, but you can't possibly know that unless you're out there.
yeah.
And so I spend a lot of time, going between Randolph, Lackland, Fort Sam, and looking around, and it's been a lot because the job change and whatnot. But I have 3 flight chiefs that work with me, and so that part is wonderful because when they need me, I'm there. and they're kind of on the beat, on the ground floor of the locations. And so they can kind of funnel things to me and tell me what they need help with. And it's, leadership is leadership. I do my best to try to, help them. And okay, if I'm in the office today, I'm going to work on this stuff so you guys can be out and about and finding out what's going on and whatnot, and make a difference what you're doing as well. So it's challenging, but I think when you're an interactive leader, the benefits of running around all over the place and trying to meet your people and get to know them and whatnot are worth it, versus, because the emails are never going to stop.
Yep.
So we're never going to catch up with them. Right. They're always going to be there. So,
well, what I learned worked for me is I'd go in and open my computer and I would push Control A delete, and they'd all go away. It's amazing that they'd all go away, and then the ones that were really important, they'd come back. So piece of cake, a great filter.
That's so funny.
Now, having worked for, and I've worked with more than 4. Some women, females, I'm not sure what the term, the proper term is. I don't want to be disrespectful. And every 06, every good boss that I ever had, in our first interactions, admonished me to tell them the truth. Don't let me fail. If I'm about to fail, Chief, you better tell me, and we'll course correct, we'll do whatever we have to do. I'm an old school kind of guy. I was brought up maybe in a different world than a lot of people now, especially. Do you think that it's possible that it's more difficult to be honest with a female, a woman boss than a guy? Guy to guy, women to women. I think, women to women, I think you communicate better than guys to woman boss. Because I don't really know what to say. This is almost my mom. It's not really, but I can't be disrespectful to my mom and say the things I would say to my dad. Do you think there's a difference?
Well, I don't know. I really kind of feel like that's personality driven. I've had a couple of female bosses that you are very aware of. Susan Desjardins was one of my bosses. Dana Bourne, I worked closely with. They were wonderful, easy women to talk to, and always so smart. And then I have other ones that I will not mention names, that were absolutely horrible and had an idea of what they thought was going to be perfect for what and our visions were different. And ultimately we agreed to disagree. And so I don't want to generalize. But I would say that that's very personality driven. I can work well on both sides as long as we're kind of shooting for the same things. And I think that's what really matters, as long as we're dedicated to making things better overall. I think that's what matters. I've never been a politician personally. And I'm sure that that's hurt me sometimes, because I always tell people I am honest to a fault. Do not ask me my opinion unless you truly want to hear it, because you may hear something you don't want to hear. And I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I were not giving an honest feedback and whatnot. So that's me. And some people are not as straightforward as me.
But that's very good advice, I think, to any chief, male, female, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Because, when I made chief, I had the blessing of being, really no kidding, well trained, because I made chief at Maxwell. And that's, the Mecca.
Sure, the Mecca.
And
absolutely.
all the chiefs were there at the time, and they're the ones that trained me up. And I remember Chief Gwaltney. It's funny because every time I tell this story, people ask me, well, what was his first name? Chief. I don't have any idea. I still, to this day, I have no idea what his name was. But anyway, he took me aside and he said, Bob, if you want to be an effective chief, you have to be willing to get your butt chewed at least once a week.
Oh yeah, it's true.
And basically what he meant was, you got to go tell the boss the truth, whether you like it or not. And I've had some bosses that weren't bad about accepting the truth. And I've had some ones that were terrible about accepting the truth. But, as a chief, I always felt like I did tell them the truth. And it hurt sometimes. I worked for someone who fired me pretty much every week. Every Friday, they said, get the hell out of my office. You're fired. And I'd walk out. Sunday night, he'd call me up and say, Chief, you coming back in the morning? Yes, sir, I'll be back. Okay. So it's... whatever, it worked out. It was a New Yorker. That's how New Yorkers are. But anyway, I thought, and the worst thing, I think, Jen, is not doing that. Like you said,
Oh,
that's the
absolutely.
disservice. Letting your boss fail when you
Hmm.
know that you could have avoided it, helped him or her avoid it, or guided them in a better direction, given them more information. I'm
Sure,
convinced that
sure.
most bosses are going to make a decision based on the information that they have. And if
Hmm.
you don't tell them, and again, you don't have to be a chief, but in particular chiefs, if you're not honest with them and tell them, boss, if you do that, man, this is what's going to happen. And,
Sure.
and then you do what the boss is going to do.
Hmm.
He or she is the boss anyway, but
Hmm.
still you've done your part in trying to make sure that the boss had all of the information that they needed.
Right. I've only met, fortunately, I had a lot of chief mentors. I think I had about 7 of them. I didn't really have any '06 mentors coming up, and probably because I gravitated more towards listening to a chief because I grew up that way. And then I met Ron Hernandez when I first got to Ramstein, and so he completely took me under his wing. So I had people like that just for, I was like, what are we doing? What are we getting into and stuff? You let me know where you need me both. And he's like, oh my God, I love this. I love this that
Mm-hmm.
your attitude is this way. And we were in a 600-person squadron, so it was huge. I mean, we didn't have time to mess around, and we had a lot of people getting in trouble as they do overseas. And so, for me to talk to him, even when I didn't understand the things that the commander was trying to explain or wanted, I always had somebody there, whether they were a senior or a chief, to kind of say, well, I think this is the idea. And I'd go, okay, I can understand that. So my perspective, had to change a little bit in seeing both sides, as a young person, as somebody who was a new officer, um, I was like, okay, I get that because, I was a little bit older than everybody being prior service and stuff. So I wasn't like a 21-year-old, baby lieutenant. I was already a little bit older than that and stuff. And
Yeah.
so that helped out a lot. But, I've always valued what my senior enlisted have had to say. And, when things are difficult, like you said, sometimes, you get your butt chewed out all the time because of that. But I wouldn't be doing that individual a service if I were not honest and upfront and saying, hey, this is what I fear, or this is what I think is coming. Maybe I'm wrong, but I figure it's better to talk to you about it. I had a boss once tell me, bad news never gets better with time.
Yeah.
So be honest and upfront right away, just so that, we can avoid the torpedoes as they're launched at us,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
at least duck a little bit before they, smack us in the head or something.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
And as an officer, as a leader, as a person in charge, I mean, the smart thing is for you to call the boss. The,
Sure,
the worst thing
sure.
is for the boss to call you and what happened?
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a good answer. The answer
It's
is,
not.
sir, we know what happened. We failed. We're fixing it.
Hmm.
It'll be done by
Hmm.
tomorrow, the next 3 days or something. Okay,
Correct.
click. And,
Yeah.
and otherwise, it's like
Hmm.
all hell breaks loose, and you don't want to do that. And I've always said, Jenda, that a lot of times, and like you and I have been together when some folks got fired. And I always
Sure.
say it was to some degree the chief's fault because that chief didn't do enough. And I don't know, I don't want to get too personal about it,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
sometimes it's like you do got to go get your butt chewed, do what you got to do, and if there's some blood on the wall, well, better yours than the airmen, the troops. So,
Right, right.
uh, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So brand new Chief Vasquez comes in the door, brand new. Gosh, that's 100 years ago. I can't even remember that. But anyway, so
I'm
what's
sure
the?
you can.
I
You
can't even.
remember a lot.
I got to keep lists of all the people that I see every day, like Deb, my kids, the dogs. It's not old age; it's the altitude.
There
But
you go.
brand new chief walks in the door. What are you going to tell him or her to help him succeed?
Well, first I'm going to welcome in that person and tell them that we're glad that they're here, and we look forward to working together. And and what kind of questions do they have? I want to start off right off the bat, with, hey, let's, we are a team and we are good, and let's talk about visions. Let's talk about how we're going to get there, and let's talk about um, just how to make things better for the mission and for the people.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that'll go both ways, right? I mean, you'll
Absolutely.
ask for his or her advice and share your advice to the person,
Mhm.
you know. And you know that it's so good when you can work as a team.
Oh, it
When you
is.
got
It
each other's
is.
backs and you can trust each other, and
Mhm.
not just that you know that person is a yes person, that my
Mhm.
chief is going to tell me, he's going to protect me
Sure.
and tell me
Sure.
before I mess up. So now altogether, how long have you been in the military and GS and all that?
Well, so about, let's see here, 36 years, I guess.
My gosh,
Yeah,
my
yeah, about
gosh, yeah,
36 years total.
wow,
Yeah, like I said, I've changed over so many different times and
yeah,
whatnot that it's crazy
yeah,
to think that it's been that long. It doesn't feel like that long until I get out of bed and go, oh, snap,
yeah,
crackle, pop, you know.
yeah.
I feel some of that. I
So
do try to.
how did you join up at 4 years of age?
Well, yeah. My hometown was very kind of small, so I
Yeah,
was time to. Yeah, that's in the book somewhere,
yeah,
I'm
that's right.
sure. But yeah. But I mean, I never, I never envisioned my life being where it is right now and stuff, and I'm very grateful for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And I'm grateful for the time that I've spent serving the Department of Defense or Department of War, whatever we're calling it these days.
yeah.
And so the whole reason I actually, because I had a great job before I moved over for the third time on the civil service side. One where, I took phone calls and I did things on Teams and didn't have to have a customer basis and stuff. And I just after 5.5 years there, I felt like I gave everything that I could. And I thought, God, I think I want to be around people again. I
Yeah.
want to, grow our next generation of civilian leaders so that they have some tools. Hopefully I can teach them some things and just kind of, shake things up and so that's kind of how I ended up in the job that I'm at. I turned down a couple of them beforehand. One was to Hawaii and one was to Alaska.
Mm,
And I just kind of wanted to stay close to home, but I also wanted to be able to give back. And so it's been good. And in a lot of ways, these guys are like senior enlisted folks, coming up
yeah.
through the ranks on the GS side and whatnot. And so I'm trying to help them and teach them and give them templates and teach them about progressive discipline when that's necessary
Right.
and talking to folks and they've already had a lot of those tools anyway. But I'm a little more forceful with certain things. And even my boss, he's a really nice guy. He's a very new GS 15. So I try to be very honest with him. Again, I'm honest to a fault. I've always been that way. But to try to help him out too.
Yeah.
And he's a very positive person, but I look at him some days and go, you know what, this too shall pass, and you just got
Right.
to hang on while you
Yeah.
can,
Yep.
hang on for the ride. And I wish
Yeah.
somebody would have pulled, Captain me back then to say, hey, life's not going to fall apart if you didn't, get this right away or you made a mistake and that kind of thing. So
Yep.
and I always feel like everything we do in life is a learning environment, right?
Yep.
It
It
just
is.
is.
It
We
is.
don't have it. And I'm grateful that we didn't have, all this technology back then that we do now, because I don't know how a lot of these people balance it all.
Yeah.
I like to shut out, like once I leave my job, I shut down and I turn it off and I'm like, okay, I need to be with my family. And sometimes that's very difficult to
Yep.
do. It is. And so, I would tell anybody, that we have to preserve ourselves a little bit just so that we can handle every day and have the juice to do it.
Yep. And you got to take care of number one first, and
We
that would
do.
be us, each of us. Yeah. So,
That's
well,
so true.
thank you so much for taking the time. And I noticed that you got your Disney shirt on. So you probably are on your way to Disney again. Still, I don't know which word is best. But
Next month, yes, I will be there again.
okay, all right. Well, God bless you, Jen. Thank you so much for your service and for your friendship and for all that you do. Keep doing it. Don't give up, and make sure that you teach all of the civilians that there's only one ruggedly handsome chief.
I will do that, Hefe. No
Okay.
problem. I
Okay,
can
because
do that.
I think you were the one that gave me the plaque, and I have the plaque right over there. And once you get the plaque, it's over.
That's
It's
right. That's
done.
it.
It's a
It's
done
it's it
deal.
is. It's law, right?
That's right. You take
Well,
care of
thank you for
yourself.
having me. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you've gained something from this episode that will empower you to become a more effective leader. If you'd like to connect with us, please do so via our website at leadershipandforesight.org. The book So You Want to Be the Chief is available on Amazon.com and on Apple Books. This podcast is powered by the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight.